Nervous.
Here we go.
You got this.
We're on.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So, welcome to One Connection Away. I'm Jennifer Courtney, your founder of
No?
Do it again. Welcome to One Connection Away podcast. My name is Jennifer Courtney, founder of Your Global Connection, and this podcast is all about real conversations around life, mindset, growth, and the power of meaningful connections.
And I'm co-host. My name is Steve Lee, and we're just here to have some fun and get some good insight from you and talk about your book and your life and everything. So
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. So each episode we feature one guest or one organization, but we always start with the person behind the title. And because we truly believe we're all just one connection away from growth, clarity, and opportunity. Today, we're really excited to be joined by Rachelle. She is an author of amazing books, and she would tell us more about that in a second. Thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate the opportunity, Steve and Jennifer. Thank you for having me again.
Yes, of course. And so before we talk about what you do, we'd love to start with getting to know you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so how would you describe yourself outside of work?
Yes, well, I was born in San Francisco, so go Niner. Bang, bang, Niner gang. We didn't do so well, just the most recent game. We were talking about that earlier. But born in San Francisco, I grew up a military brat in the Army. Because I come from a multi-generational, military family, it was, not too far off to find myself also working as a public servant. So I was a civilian during that time. But nonetheless, those opportunities had me kind of being whisked around the world. So outside of that, though, I would say that I prioritize my family a lot. And then comes the different things that, I focus my time on.
I see. So what do you think, which season of life are you currently in?
Today, I would say my season is of intention and meaning. I've been focusing a lot on my new book that's upcoming. It's called Years in the Making, How Facing Your Fears Leads to Authentic Peace. I had gone through a couple of, life situations that we all kind of go through. And it really developed into this book that I've created. And I came to a place where, because of my journey, I felt like I could help others too.
Nice. And it's really when you give out to others, it goes back to you, and that's just a good thing. So let's see, do you have any questions or something that you'd like to know more about Rachelle?
I love the piece. I was looking at the information you gave us, and I love that you have that intentional piece and also the purposeful piece. So I think those are important pieces of what we do and why we do what we do. So love what you're doing, and the books that you're doing, it's all about helping people. And to me, helping people is everything right now. And helping is, I think, part of our society. I think we all just need to be a little bit kinder to each other.
I think so.
And I think we lost that.
Yes. Way back when, just around when the internet was coming around, because we're old enough to remember that time, for the kids who come after us and they follow, this is all that they know. And at that time, it was meant to be a platform, the internet and the phones and the texting was a way to just quickly communicate. After some studies, because I'm a nerd and, I did critical thinking when I was in college, it was a course. And one of the questions were, where would we find ourselves with these types of mobile devices, and you have to look 50 years in front of whatnot. And I thought that it would actually create a divide in our ways of communicating, because everyone was already flipping their phones and just staring at this mobile device. And after time, I started to notice that even within a room, a crowd of people were not connected. We're connected to that device. Exactly. And that has created part of what you were talking about, Steve. When I talk about intentional and meaningful life, the book focuses on being able to face our challenges, our doubts, our fears, and that can mean various things for the different folks, right? We all have our stories, and what I do want to say is that it is very important to honor your personal story. The book that I'm writing is part memoir and part self-help, but is not meant to say this is the only story that one can have. So I do interview a few folks from different walks of life, different stories, because they all matter. Your story matters. And what I think sometimes happens is there's a unnecessary distraction to becoming the best version of ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And why is that important? Well, because when we can become the best version of ourselves, we then have this opportunity to pay it forward. I know it's kind of weird because I'm 45, so I would say I'm like at the halfway point, but I started looking towards the future and I look back at, my children and the future that follows us. What are we leaving behind for them? Because knowledge is power. And if we continue to create gaps and divides with these mobile devices, well, we're going to do exactly that. We're going to create gaps and divides between what really matters. And being able to move aside these unnecessary distractions, we can get closer to who we are as in our authentic selves. And what does that look like? In our culture, in the Filipino culture, you're like, are you going to become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or a nurse? And it's like, why is there only 4 occupations for us? Why can't it be something else under the sun? But that's part of it, is like, who are we? Like, who are you authentically? Mm-hmm. Maybe you're not a people person, right? Maybe you don't want to deal with, and that's okay. True. Maybe you're a creative and you want to build things. And so you decide, I want to do this because I want to make mom and dad proud. But maybe perhaps you take away from yourself and then you grow up with this, maybe, I don't know, feelings of resentment that maybe you haven't really focused, and that comes out in other ways. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that became a problem because I felt like I was kind of doing those things. And if I was doing that, and I'm a regular somebody, someone else could be doing those things.
I think part of it is, I think people do stuff because what they think they should, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been hearing this, like, if you do what you love, it's not work.
Right.
And I think, and a lot of times it has to do with cultures and what your parents expect you to do. And sometimes you feel like if you don't do what they expect you to do, then you're disappointing them.
Exactly.
And it's not disappointing them. As long as you're a good person and you do the right thing,
right, and
you do what you love and
right,
you're happy. I mean, I'm a parent, so as a parent, that's all I care about. It's not money. It's a matter of them being happy with what they do, no
exactly,
matter what it is.
Exactly.
And everyone has their own devices, what they want to do. And I love the thing you're talking about, communication. There's so many communication devices, and it's good to communicate, I think, on a level to communicate information, but then it takes away from the personal piece.
Exactly.
And that's where I think the gap will fall apart. But sometimes people sit at a table, they don't know how to talk to each other.
No, yeah.
They just look at their phones and they're busy doing, So it's one of those, like, we created this amazing tool, but it's almost like, in a way, it's backfiring us. We don't know how to.
Yes, and so we have to find a way to learn how to utilize it in the way that it was intended. And I think where we're at today, we now understand where we might have missed some things. And yes, that social ability would include emotional intelligence. And when you're staring at a phone, well, you can't really learn emotional intelligence because that requires another human being and interaction with another human being and understanding, right? So the saying goes, understand first and then be understood. That's something that's a dying art, right? Mm-hmm. But that's all part of it. So I do talk about that concept in the book. Our parents may have wanted certain things for us because it comes from somewhere. And I do talk about extending grace and understanding where perhaps the adults that were in our lives and where they were and why they were so interested, why these things matter so much, could help color that conversation between parent and child and say, I understand where you're coming from, and I can promise you that the route that I'm going, I've thought about it, and I'm going to be okay. Mom, dad, auntie, uncle, grandma, because I'll sit you in like a forum and be like, hey, you should be doing this. To give them that confidence, say, I got you. And the thing about it, Steve and Jennifer, is that regardless of what they're doing to earn a living, because at the end of the day, that's what we want for our kids, right? We want them to be independent, to sustain on their own. Regardless of what they make, they can still have a very fruitful future. It's how you spend that money,
I agree.
how you manage it. So it's not about, I have seen it all. I've seen people with lots of money and they have zero saved. And then I've seen parents who make annually 30,000 combined and they've sent their 2-3 kids to college.
Yep.
And they have a retirement.
Exactly. It's just a matter of educating yourself financially as a parent. As parents, our first obligation is to make sure that we educate our kids
Exactly.
inside the home.
Yes.
Because unfortunately, in the school system these days, they don't really focus on the financial education. You know, so now we're all here in this rat race, going around in circles, paying our bills, getting our check, paying our bills, step, repeat, right?
Exactly.
But it's really, as parents, I think it's great that this book is educating and also, I think it's healing.
Absolutely.
It is healing.
I think people will find that.
Right.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Right.
Yes, because then what it does, and it's in a very gentle way, because anytime we talk about things, because money could be a taboo topic for many. You know, I've been with my husband. You know, we met on New Year's night. But anyways,
wow.
aside from
No
that,
way.
I'm like, I've been with you forever. Yes,
Okay.
we did. We met here. And so when I think about it, like my husband still has, you know, I want to say a little bit of anxiety when it comes to talking about money. I have no idea why that's his journey, but he does. But I'm very like, no, let's talk about it because you can build around it and you can manage it and we're gonna be okay. It's all good, right? But those things come from conversations or experiences from his past, right? And mine come from experiences from my past. But that's what the book is here to help people unpack if they're willing to look at those things, right? These are conversations that are not easy to have. We have to be able to be okay to walk through those different, like they're internal conversations to be exact, and say, am I okay to, it's okay.
There you go.
Yeah, you know, are you okay to have these conversations with ourselves? Sometimes it's scary to know who we are because we don't want to admit who we are. So, for example, when I don't talk about just yet, and I'm glad that we're here at this point, is what was that journey for me? So, yeah, I was whisked around the world as a young girl in the Army. That was in my mom's second marriage. So my first marriage, my real father, it didn't quite work out. They were divorced but before I was 2. By the time I was 3, my mom remarried. And that particular marriage is a defining, I want to say, era of my life because it was a very abusive time in my life. And I didn't talk about this for many decades. So those things that could happen to a child, those are the things that happened to me. And I never wanted that to be known to other people because I didn't want people's pity. It was enough that I was, and I hate to talk about it because it shouldn't be something that we still talk about today, but it's still there. I'm female. I'm a minority, right? And I'm pretty smart. So none of those things really ever worked in my favor wherever I went because then I was just a smart, you know, getting on your nerves kind of a person because I always had something to say, right? And I was kind of tough because of what I was growing up with. And so I kind of wanted to just run away from that so fast as I was coming up into my very young adult years. And in any event, that has largely shaped me really wanting to approach this book because I wish I had an adult figure that said, you know what, I hear you, I see you, I know what pain is like. And if you want a particular future for yourself, you can make that for yourself because I did it. It's not easy, but if that's what you really want, you can have that. And I promise you can get where you want to. And that's where that authentic piece is what I'm referring to, is that you can't erase what has happened. Those fears will remain there. But how do we approach those fears, right? Yeah. How do we begin to heal ourselves? And then when I was comfortable to talk about those things about myself, I felt like I'm okay to now help someone else through those things, right? Because those things could be those things that distract you so much where, I mean, let's face it, the cards that I was dealt with, statistically, I'm supposed to be hooked on drugs, alcohol. Chances are I would have been a prostitute. I know maybe this is not something I should say over podcast. We can cut it out. I'm not supposed to have, a healthy marriage. I'm not supposed to be functioning, right? I shouldn't have a business or have written these books or be so engaged as a parent. Everything was not supposed to be. And I'll tell you that the only thing that I can give credit to God. There's nothing that I have to explain why I'm here, but just His grace. So I figured, if God's going to give me a second chance, what do I do with this gift that He's given me? Right? He's the light, He's the way. Okay, I will be a channel. I will serve, and I will try to do good work. I'm not perfect. I mean, I speak sailor. That's like my vice. My kids are like, gosh, Mom, your mouth. I'm like, that is probably the worst it'll ever get.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know what? I totally agree with that, because I came across this line. It goes, I'm not what happened to me. I'm what I choose to be.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that stuck to me, because it's like, going back to the, like our past is our past. We can't change it at all. But what we can do is figure out what we can do in the future.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So when I started to remind myself, you know what? This and this happened to me, but okay, so what? I'm not what happened to me. Whatever that was.
Exactly.
I am who I choose to be right now. Right? And, also, in the service yesterday, we had a really great service at church, and it says in prayer, right? Everything, when you pray to God, truly trust that it has already, trust that you received. That's what the pastor said. Trust that you have already received it, and it's just a matter of time.
Yes.
It's just a matter of time, and just trust however the path is to that goal, to that prayer. Just trust. It may not look like how you really wanted it,
yes,
but in the end, you prayed for this.
Right.
So just hold on tight.
Yes.
And you'll get there. So it was just a really great kind of reminder yesterday.
Yes.
So it's
yes.
perfect timing, because he also said we can pray for success. We can believe it, right? So I'm like, God, dear God, I pray for success, right?
Absolutely.
But what is the true meaning of success, though?
There you go.
Let's tackle that real quick.
Absolutely.
The pastor said, Pastor Javen, City Light, he said, true success is when the right people, the right timing, and the right place meet. So if you have all those factors in whatever you're wanting to do, you have true success.
That's exactly in line with what I talk about. The book mock-up shows stairs up to a gift, and that's meant to represent someone's individual journey, because it is a climb. And at the top, wherever the top is, whatever success is, that's a gift to yourself. You see, we can't wait for others we should not, that they would just hand us life on a platter.
Nice,
it
right?
would be nice. We don't have, what do I call it? Genetic lottery for most of us, right? We don't have genetic lottery. But that is exactly what it is, right? So when I talk about, well, what does that mean? Peace and joy. That means regardless of what is happening in the world, because people will be people, they'll be humans, there's going to be disappointment, there's going to be things that we anticipated and it didn't quite come through, what have you. But are we equipped with tools to handle those things so that it doesn't shake us from our core, so that it doesn't define who we are, that we're going to be okay at the person that we look at in the mirror? You know what I mean? Because that stuff that I talked about, where I spent years chasing external achievements, and I had so much just falling out of my pockets, right? But I also don't like to say that, but I just felt like, okay, if I do this, I'm good. If I do that, I'm going to be great. I can't wait to get that pat on the shoulder from my boss and da-da-da. But inside, I felt there was a void. Is because of all the things that was really gnawing at me. Did I ever address the 9-year-old girl, right? What about her? How does she feel? Is she okay? What does that mean for raising young men, right? How is that impacting your ability to focus in the present world? Because we haven't yet talked to her yet, right? How was that impacting my physical state? I was eating myself alive. I didn't even know it. And that's where I ran into my cancer scare. I was 30. I was a consultant at a top tier 3 defense contractor at Washington, D.C. You would have thought I was living it up, being traveled around to train different federal agencies on their processes, living in this beautiful condo, just staring at the Air Force Memorial, right?
Oh, wow.
I mean, really. And at the time, my husband wasn't working because he was a stay-at-home dad, because he could be. And I was managing millions and millions of dollars in federal contracts, training here, there, and I had a young son. And at around 3, did my lady visit, and my OB says, Rachelle, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, well, we're here. Like, of course, talk to me. She goes, I need for you to sit up. So I sat up, and she goes, well, I don't need a second opinion, and I don't need to do a biopsy. I can tell you right now with my naked eyes that you have some abnormal growth, and I need for you to go into surgery now. I said, that's what I thought. I said, now, like now, or like, what do you mean by now? She goes, in the next month, but no longer than 3 months, because if you do that, it's just going to escalate, and there's no way for us to save that. And I said, okay, all right. So my husband, he's great at research. So I said, honey, could you find the doctor? Because I was just losing my mind. And so he did. He found a renowned doctor across the states. And this is why I think God sent me to watch. Because there was, again, this head of, he was leading in this field, and he was based out of Maryland. He was able to get an appointment with the doctor within a month. But within that month, I literally saw my life before my eyes. I'm like, I don't even know if I should tell my mom. Do I tell my sister? I go, we need to get the wills and the trust in place. Here's what you do if I don't make it after the table, or if I don't make it at all. It was a shock.
You had everything just running through your head. What do I do?
All in that short amount of time, right? And I was like, God willing. And this doctor had very high success, rates. So I did go through it. It was successful, obviously, because I'm sitting here. Like, how does it pan out? How did it pan out? How did it work out? Well, I'm here. But they did say, because of the amount of tissue that was removed, I may not be able to have kids again. And of course, I loved my son, but he is like one of those kids who are like, is this what motherhood is about? I don't know if I could have another one. But when they told me that I possibly couldn't have another one, I was like, I'll show you. And so we were given the green light, and then I was pregnant with our second one, right? So it was like, he's miracle baby, but it was something else because of my condition. They had to check me every week. So I felt like a lab specimen. I'm like, hello, all right, just my body's not my body.
They're poking and prodding.
My goodness, yes. And they're like, at month 8, it was very funny. At month 8, they were like, I think we're good. I said, I hope so.
Well, I'm glad all that poking, prodding.
Oh my God!
Right.
As long as the end result.
It was so funny throughout. I was a good sport. Yeah, and because it was an opportunity, right? There was. Very often I had resident students because they were like, check out this specimen. And I was just like, gosh, my body's not my own, but okay, I'm here for science. Yeah.
So you kind of, in a way, you helped other people.
Yeah, right? In like this sideways kind of way. Yeah. So that's how that happened. And so here I am, fast forward, post that. I come back home, right, after DC, having learned this is not, like, I'm young and I'm and the idea was that I was going to stay there and do the things that people do in DC. But I was like, that is not me. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I get it, God. Like, this is not my focus. This is not my priority. So I come back home here and I continue to work with the DoD at Nellis Air Force Base. And I'm running a team with one of my coworkers, great guy, EA, professional basketball player for the Air Force, but a smart dude, so we're working in contracts. He goes out and, he does his deployments, like 4 of them, comes back, and he has severe stomach pains. And as a mom, I'm like, you really got to get checked. Yeah. And he was like, no, I can deal with the pain. And I'm like, no, you really got to get checked. And then by the time he actually got an appointment to get checked, he was at stage 4 cancer, stomach. And it just happened so fast. He was such a dear friend of mine. I can say every once in a while he does appear in my dreams and he is happy. So I'm happy for him. But we talked a lot about business and what we would do post to help other businesses and things like that. But it was a really big shock because I saw him last at UMC and they flew him out to LA because they had better technology to try and help him. But then he had passed in the hospital in LA.
Wow.
And it was so hard because I remember holding his hand and I said, I'll see you later. And he goes, yeah, I'll see you later. And to come back to work and to hear that only a couple of days later he had passed, it really shook my core because I was like, this is not fair. It's not fair. He was such a stand-up guy, never married, no kids. He was trying to do it all by the book, right? Mm-hmm. And he had plans after retirement with the Air Force to open his business. And that's when it really struck me because I was like, I'm not here forever. You know, what am I doing? And what am I doing for the world around me? If I don't do this, then what do I tell my kids, right? Just keep working the job, be on that rat race? Or do I take a chance in honor of his memory, like in the things that we talked about? Because I don't need to be here, but for whatever reason, I am. And he's not. And it really bothered me because I guess it's that guilt, survivor's guilt. Mm-hmm. And I had conversations with God on the floor and with him, and I just said, I want to do better. And that was the beginning of this journey. So it was around 2017, and I was going through a lot of transformation. I had to say no where I didn't want to say no, and I didn't get a lot of positive feedback.
What do you mean? You always say yes, right?
Exactly. The good daughter should always say yes. The good sister should always say yes. Mm-hmm. But I realized that I was really pushing on all fronts, and that wasn't fair to me, to my husband, to my children. I wasn't there for them. I thought I was there for them, but I wasn't because my mind was somewhere else. So I quit the DoD to pursue my business, and that's that transition, and then just kind of restructuring everything and to start focusing on myself. And it's not easy, right? It was never going to be easy.
It is lonely.
It is
this
very,
kind of frequency, it's pretty lonely.
It is.
It's not for everyone. It's only for the brave. Number one, starting your own business is already like you have to have the guts, because there are some times when you would have to put out fires, like 2-3 fires all at the same time. You gotta have to know how to do that. But it's good that you have started this, and we like to know more about what you're building for the future and what your plans are and how we can collaborate with you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Right now, the season and the place where I'm at is really working on that work where I talk about being more purposeful and intentional. If it hasn't come through, I'm very passionate about how people live their lives and to be with them during those times that get really hard, and just to kind of be there to listen and to help where I can. And in the book, I try to offer those things. Here are things that I went through. Here are things I have learned through professionals, and just so that everyone knows I am working with the professionals. I would say that I'm an astute student, so that I, want to make sure that it is backed by science-based evidence. So all of this information is peer-reviewed and from medical journals. So I didn't just pick up like a Las Vegas Weekly and look at what the horoscope says. So I wanted to make sure that wasn't a distraction for a reader, but to work through exercises that they could immediately apply in their everyday lives. So it should be able to speak to things that what maybe some people find these are small things, these are small doubts, and all the way through to the very hard conversations, these really dark spaces where sometimes we do feel alone and we have these self-doubts, and to be able to have a partner, if you will, like within this tool. So right now for me is through this book wanting to, if you will, create a movement in this idea of self-love, and then supporting community through conversations that normally don't take the front. I mean, we have lots of conversations about Ozempic. I don't know why. Right. It's so cool. People get to look like fabulous on the outside, but really what is happening on the inside, right? And I want to be able to bring those conversations to the front because I know that pain is real. And I think it's time that we should be okay to talk about these things, because growing up, talking to a therapist was like a weird, no, there's nothing wrong, just suck it up. And I'm like, no, but that doesn't sound right? We should get to a place where it's okay, because these things happen, and the darker things are there, and why are we not addressing those things? Again, I mentioned, I wish I had an adult that was not afraid to look me in the eye and say, Rachelle, what's going on? You can share with me, right? And then to do something about it. Some people feel like, well, that's not our family, we shouldn't do anything about it. Really? I mean, it kind of crossed some lines. So I think they kind of like gave up that card, you know? Like, I think that if we see something, say something.
Absolutely.
Because how many lives can you save by doing that? So as far as the book is where it's at, for me, it's more about education and keeping the dialogue in front about these hard conversations. I'd like to, if there's possibilities to continue the dialogue with, you know, mental health spaces, therapy type of services, it would be so awesome if this could be a tool that was utilized as part of a supplement in that kind of help. Wellness centers, right? Spaces like that.
I think it's letting people feel comfortable talking about the bad pieces. No one wants to talk about the bad piece, just like you're talking about money. No one wants to talk about money.
Right.
You know, that's a sore subject, but I think the other thing I think you're telling us is, one is you got to take care of yourself first before you could help others. And that's what you have, that turning point. It's like, wait a minute, I'm doing everything for everything else besides me.
Right.
And once that change in you, you're sharing that, because I think a lot of people feel that way, but they feel like they're the only one that feel that way.
Exactly.
You know?
I appreciate you saying that, because that is so true. It's so true on both ends. It's true that most people think that they're going through it alone, and it's also true that they are not. But yeah, to me, that's where meaningful connection happens, because if we know this of each other and our intent is to help each other, then we can do that in community, because you don't have to walk alone in that.
That's so true. That's
Right? We wouldn't want our children to walk alone. And just because we're adults, that doesn't mean that we know all these things. I would consider myself a forever student. Like, the scariest thing is for me is to be the smartest person in the room, because then what do I get to learn? I'm not learning anything. Right? So that's a scary room to be in. Like, I'm the smartest person. There's a problem.
You always want to be around people who are smarter than you.
I think so.
So how can people best collaborate and support what you're doing?
Well, as we move forward into the future, typically has been on the social media platforms, and probably the best way to get a hold of me today is on my social media handle, and that's at Rachelle G. Luna. That's spelled R-A-C-H-E, and that's the handle for Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can look up Rachelle Luna and you can find me there as well.
Okay, that's good. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. It's really healing, actually, just letting it out.
Thank you.
Spreading it in the air. I mean,
Yes.
that's the best way to give out, to give back to the community. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much again for this opportunity. I hope that I have been helpful in trying to make meaning of one connection, because you're absolutely right. It is just one connection away. It was a pleasure speaking with you both, and I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Rachelle. So for those listening, if today's conversation resonated with you, we encourage you to connect intentionally and stay open, because you truly never know how close you are to your next opportunity.
Absolutely. A lot of times it's right there, you're at the peak, and that's when you stop. So the hardest time you feel is probably the point that's going to take you over to the other side. So never give up. You keep pushing. I mean, Rachelle does what she did. I mean, her story is amazing.
Oh,
and she's
thank
had
you.
a lot of stuff that's happened that could stop. And one is, you don't let your past dictate your future, right?
Sure.
So you could always talk about, you know, this happened to me, that happened to me. I had a horrible child life, and you can make excuses why you're not being productive as you can. But I think one is, if you talk to the right people, and you, I think, not internalize it and talk to someone. And I think one thing you said is, you don't avoid those bad things. When you address those, then those bad things aren't bad as you think they are.
Exactly.
So
Well
we
stated.
love that you're sharing that, and that I think your books are going to help a lot of people.
Thank you.
So speaking of books, tell us more about this book, the title of the book, and I know that you're doing a pre-sale campaign.
I sure am.
Right,
Yes, the
so
title of the
tell
book
us.
is, holy cow. I was going to leave with the subtitle, right? The title of the book is Years in the Making, How Facing Your Fears Leads to Authentic Peace. Yes. And it is in the pre-sale campaign. Thank you so much. So what we're doing is we're working together to build the book's early community readers. It really is about just bringing the attention to the book's message, and anyone who's interested in becoming a sponsor. That's not the main point, is to create the early reader community because of the book's thesis and wanting to help those who might need that help today, right? And it runs now through January 9th. You can find it at Rachelle G. Luna. If you go there, there's a link in the bio. I'm also sharing links on LinkedIn. If you check me out there, you'll see that I'm posting and you can find more information there. There's lots of different values and bundle options that if you're interested in, you could pick variations, and then more to come as we will follow with different specials as we close out the campaign. The book is to be published around summer 26. It's pretty wild. They're already talking to me about a book towards the end of the year. I know, feeling very blessed, but very happy about being able to share with the community, because I do think it's time to have these types of conversations without fear.
It's about time. It's really about time. So again, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your life with us. My name is Jennifer Courtney with One Connection Away podcast.
And Steve Lee.
Until next time, we're just one connection away.
Thank you.
Good job.
That went really well, right?